righty, folks. Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. We're your hosts, Brendan and Sean. And, well, brother, good to see you, man. How's it going?
Pretty good, dude. It's a Saturday, and it feels like a little crispy in the air. It's been in the 30s in the morning, and I was up in Denali, and it was well below freezing in the morning. So it's exciting to have the winter there's coming. This is the part where I'm excited about it. But I get excited now, and then January rolls around, and I'm like, all right, how many more months of this we got? But look, I've signed up for this. Living in Alaska, it's awesome having long winters, and autumn is almost over.
That's funny. So I had lunch with Dad earlier today, and we were talking about the weather here in Georgia, and we were referring it to this is we just had like a false fall. I don't know if you've seen those those little memes or whatever in Georgia. Like we're notorious for we finally left summer and now it's fall, and then everyone gets excited and then it gets summer again. So I think we're in what is like the last summer, summer 10.0 or whatever that list is. And so we went out to eat, and we're like, yeah, let's just sit outside. It's a nice day. It's like 80 degrees, and the sun was just like right where we sat was just destroying me, dude. And it's like, man, summer's still here. So just funny to hear the different perspectives between here and Alaska.
It does end up getting a little like at the mid-afternoon, if the sun's out, like it might just be in the 50s, but like it feels like you could put your shorts on for a couple hours and then it goes away real quickly. But there's still a couple of parts of the day where you're like, oh, this is actually, I could take a layer off. But I also got like all my down coats out, my down pants. We went camping up in the interior Alaska, and I was, it was cold. It was definitely,
it was proper. Up. It was proper.
Yeah, there was frost. It was frosty. It was snowing. It was good. It was good.
Nice. Well, before we get too deep into this week's episode, I just want to send a reminder and a thank you to anyone who's listening, first of all. Sean and I were the worst at it, but please make sure you're liking, subscribing, and following us. Mushing Alaska on Instagram, it's mushing.alaska.podcast. Facebook and YouTube, we're Mushing Alaska. And as it relates to some goals that we have on YouTube, we are about almost halfway to our goal in terms of subscribers. So we really appreciate it. And even if you're not watching us on YouTube, just subscribe to us. It helps us out. It benefits us. And again, when we get to the actual Iditarod, we'll be doing videos almost every day. And so I think you guys will want to keep up with that as we're following along with the race. So I just wanted to take a quick reminder again to like, subscribe, and follow us. And then on that note, I wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple folks that reached out to us. We got a note from Akita. I don't know where Akita is from, but Akita, we appreciate the love. She just said that she thought we were doing a great job with the podcast. And so I just wanted to give her a quick shout out. Thought that would be kind of nice. And then second, this one, I know where they're from. And so I was like, this is pretty cool. But a shout out to Andrew, Rowan, and Arlie. They're coming from Wales. Fans of the Iditarod, listened to the podcast, discovered us, I guess last year is what it said. Rowan and Arlie are the sons. They're 6 and 8 years old. And so we just wanted to give them a shout out. I thought that was cool. Their dad reached out to us and just appreciated that we were doing the podcast. And we actually, when Sean did the Iditarod, we made some shirts that the family was wearing when he crossed the finish line. And we have a bunch of leftovers. And so we decided we're gonna send those kids a couple shirts, and just appreciate the fact that they're listening again all the way from Wales. That's I was looking at the breakdown of our listens, like we get the stats of it. So obviously United States is the overwhelming listener to our podcast at 80%. Norway 6%. Shout out to Norway. Canada at 5%. Okay, and then the UK. Shout out to Wales. Shout out to the UK. 2% though. So maybe we could get a little more love. Maybe this helps grow in there. But anyways, just a quick little second. We appreciate anyone listening. If you guys want to reach out to us, we encourage it. We'll interact. We enjoy just learning more about who's listening, and it gives us an opportunity to give you guys a little shout out. So
Rowan is supposed to be signing up for 2033 Iditarod is what I was told.
Oh, okay. Shout out Rowan. Let's go, bro.
Rowan, and the other one, what's the other kid's name?
Arlie.
Well, yeah, this, so 2033, 2035, that's what we're looking at.
That's the future right there. I like that's how we're connecting the dots right here. I like this.
And shout out to Gareth Bale, world-class footballer.
Yeah. I don't know what he has to do with the mushing community.
He's from Wales, they're from Wales.
Oh,
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anyone, I don't know any other person in the world from Wales that is famous besides Gareth Bale, but there's probably other people, I'm sure it's a wonderful rainy country,
Rainy. Oh yeah. You had to hit him with the reminder of the rain, huh?
I don't know. I've never been there. I don't know anything. I'm sorry. I love your country and you guys.
We need to get there, though. We need to get over to the UK.
We do. Our grandma's from there.
Yes, but we digress. So keeping us on track, I wanted to just quickly catch up. You weren't on the intro of our last podcast, and that was because you were doing a little trip in Denali. And so I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that trip, what you were up to, how did it go, stuff like that.
I lived up in Denali working. That's near where Jeff King's kennel is, and so got a lot of friends and stuff there. I made some rounds and said hi, and we went. The highlight was definitely a group of us went out and camped for about a week, and hoping to put some meat in the freezer. It's moose hunting season. It's hunting season for moose, not just moose, caribou and sheep, and so that's some of the best quality meat you can consume anywhere, and so it's a world-class opportunities right in the backyard of Alaska. So we got out there, and I'm not very experienced in hunting. Brendan and I had the same childhood, which if you ask Brendan what he knows about hunting, that's about as much as I know, and I've been up here for a few years, and so I've learned a couple things. But it was cool to be surrounded by a lot of experienced hunters that it taught me a lot. And we ended up getting some meat put in the freezer, and might have some moose burger tomorrow night, and maybe Brendan I'll bring some home when I come and visit. Oh man.
So y'all, just my story on the moose meat. So Sean went out on a hunt a few years ago, and he came home and gave me some. And I guess at that time I wasn't about it. I don't know. I wasn't like anti moose meat, but I just was like, whatever, so I just threw it in the freezer and I didn't do anything with it. And then my wife and I, no shit. Right. So my wife and I were going through the freezer, and I'm like, man, like, why have I not cooked this? And this is maybe like 10 months after you've given it to me. And so we had a friend over, and we decided we were going to make, I have like a shout out to my friend Uriel. He's inspired me on the Taco Tostada Tuesday train. So I did like my go-to meal with the moose meat, and it was just like absolutely like out of this world. And so it just made me open my mind up a little bit more to like the non-traditional game meats that you don't normally like in Georgia, it's like, you have chicken, you have fish, you have your beef, it's not like you don't see a lot of not cow essentially. So anyways, so yeah. And the was there any like was there a highlight to the camping trip? Like obviously you guys found you got your moose, you got some food in the freezer. Was there anything else that was kind of a highlight of that trip?
Yeah, I would say that getting to, when you think of a moose hunt, you ask anyone that's done it for a long time, there's usually some associated, pain and grit that goes with the experience. But it just was not the case on this time. Like we had to, walk the meat about less than half a mile. And we had not one, not two, not three people, but 8 people. And so, usually a legal bull, that's a healthy adult moose is going to be, 9 or 10 loads, 100-pound loads or whatever on your back. And so, yeah, you're really thinking, where is this moose compared to where we have to walk the moose to? And it was like, you couldn't have dreamed up a better scenario. 8 people, half a mile. And then, we were by 4:00 that day, we were sitting around the fire and, cracking beers and the job was done, so it was really, that was special. And then just I loved, that was like the first place I lived in Alaska, Denali. And I went up there and I was like, all right, I'm moving back up. And then I came back down to Anchorage and I was like, all right, maybe not quite yet, but I do want to go back up there,
Dude, out of curiosity, like, it doesn't sound like it was a taxing type of a hunt. Like, it doesn't sound like you went out and you were like 3, 4, 5 days in and you finally made found it. It sounds like it was like an easy deal.
Yeah. And no credit to me at all in that fact that it was easy. And
you just got asked by the right people, right?
Dude, Alex, my buddy Alex is telling me, he's like, dude, you've like never gone on a shitty hunt. Like every time you go, we get an animal and it goes like pretty well. And I'm like, yeah. And then, a lot of other people that went hunting in my friend groups, went and I got a buddy that drove all the way up to pretty much the northern coast of Alaska, drove like 18 or 20 hours to go and maybe get a caribou. He didn't get one. He comes back and his attitude's just like, it was an awesome trip. And, I had a great time. I saw some beautiful country and we, it didn't happen, but it was a great experience. And so it's like, even if you don't come back with meat, most people are able to keep a good attitude. And, a lot of parallels with kind of some of the mushing mentality you might need when you're going out hunting, as well.
Nice. Do you want to give you mentioned Alex, anyone else in your group a little quick shout out?
I mean, dude, they ain't listening to this.
They ain't listening.
But I want to shout out. It reminds me that Tara and Cody, they were super. Me and Cody spent a lot of time broing out together. He didn't end up going on the hunting trip, but Tara was there at the hunting trip, and those guys ended up letting me invite Jessie Holmes to their cabin while they weren't home. And me and Jessie got this awesome video of us sitting down and talking for over an hour in Tara and Cody's cabin. So they're officially sponsors of the podcast.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So this episode brought to you by Cody and Tara. There we go, baby. All right. Well, we have kind of rambled on, so I do want to kind of keep things on the train here. And so with that, one thing that I wanted to bring up, just a little something here before we get into the interview with Jessie. Sean, you were telling me about the fact that the Iditarod this year has changed from 14 dogs to 16 dogs. And so we felt, let's bring that up. Let's talk about it. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, this has changed a lot over the years. Um, I think that even in early Iditarod days, there wasn't even like a limit. There was just like, you take how many ever dogs you feel comfortable taking. Um, but people were taking 20 dogs, and we talk about this with Jesse. Jesse and I it was really cool to hear his opinion on it, and I think that having 14 dogs, you have a smaller margin for error, and you might, with those extra two dogs, you could be like, I'm not sure if this dog has a thing going on. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Let me just send the dog home and play it safe. I've got 15 other all-star dogs. I'll just, and so it's much easier to send a dog home when you have those extra two dogs on your team. Right. And then whereas like if let's say you get the classic Iditarod or sled dog race thing, which is your dogs have been training in one little area of Alaska. They meet up with hundreds of other dogs that have other germs and whatever, and they get a little sick. You can have, you might have to send 3 dogs home in one checkpoint. Right. We're going to go from 14 to 11 and you're only 200 miles into the race. Whereas if you go from 16 down to 13, you're fine, and 11's probably fine, but you're starting to think about it like, ugh. So it just gives you that little extra margin of error. And I think it's better for the dogs, because you're not going to maybe you'd be quicker to send them home instead of like, oh, let's go one more checkpoint. And I think you're fine. I'm not sure. And then it's better for the mushers too, just having that peace of mind. Like, I don't know, for me, and I think I'm not alone. Like, I spend so much mental energy thinking about, is there something going on with this one dog who's running a little bit differently than we're used to seeing? And, you can just send that dog home and be like, probably nothing was wrong, but I'm tired of thinking about it. So I got other stuff to worry about. I got these other 15 dogs to care for.
Let me ask this, because I don't want to get too lost on this, because I know that you and Jesse talk about it. But why would the Iditarod change from 14 to 16 or 16 to 14? Like, right. What's going on there?
Well, it's like 16 to 14. It's like pretty much a big reason would be financial. These dogs are flying in these small bush planes, and a flight can be several $100s of gas or fuel. And so that's probably the biggest reason. And then you got more dogs at more checkpoints, not just the flying, but you need maybe some more veterinarians, maybe some more volunteers, maybe, more of everything. So that's why you would take it down. And, 14 dogs is plenty of dogs to go and do this. But I think 16 is, and that's the thing, like, you don't have to take 16 dogs. Right. There's no rule saying you have to do that. So if you're like, dude, I don't want to run a 16 dog team, that shit is crazy, because running a 16 dogs that aren't like very well trained, and you're not a very well trained musher, which is usually not the case, but certainly can be, you just take the 14 and you don't need to bring 16. If you're worried about that being too much dog power or too much for you to handle. So you bring it to 16, you can send it. It's going to be a little more expensive for the race, but I think it's better for the dogs and for the mushers. And if you still want to take 14, you still can, and that's fine. And that might work out better. So yeah, I think you change it down to 14, financial reasons. Budgeting for this race it's like millions of dollars to do this. So, that's, and the dogs, you saw the 14 dogs. We did fine as a race with 14 dogs, but I think a lot of mushers were like, hey, they have a meeting at the end of every race, and they're like, what is something you want to see changed for next year? Okay. They ask the mushers, and I promise you, this has been something that they've brought up time and time again since they changed it down to 14. So now they're going to go back to 16. And, I want to shout out to 17th dog, Matt Failer, because his kennel is named after kind of like the Seahawks, how they have like the 12th man, the Seattle Seahawks, like the 12th man on their team is the crowd.
Right.
Right. Well, with Matt Failer and his 17th dog kennel, the 17th dog is the fans and their support. Right. And it changed down to 14. And I remember talking to him and being like, dude, you have to change your kennel name to like 15th dog, huh? And he was like, nah, like they change the rules all the time. Like we'll keep it at, and then he kept it at 17 for like, I don't know how many years was the 14 dog thing? Like maybe 3-4 years. Kept it at 17.
Now
we're back to 16 dogs. Bam. Now the name makes sense again.
Good to go.
Dude, way not to change. I might have changed it. He didn't. He stuck true. And boom. Now he's back.
Shout out. All right. So moving on. That's very interesting. And I will enjoy listening and getting other people's reactions to hearing Jesse's perspective on it. I did want to touch up on, and last time I talked about the Willow 300 looked like it was going to get canceled. And then like we put this podcast out and almost 24 hours later, there was an update that one of the directors was stepping down, and that maybe there was some hope to the Willow. So just, I don't know. We've kind of rambled on a bit here, so I don't want to take too much time, but you have anything to say on this?
Yeah, I got to hang out with Eddie a few days ago. We had a nice chat, just talking about dogs for like 3 hours, and wish we would have pressed record, but honestly, it's kind of nice to just have an uninhibited conversation and not be thinking about, oh, there's a microphone. But he made a good point. It's like, dude, races come and go. And, I think that's the biggest point. I remember I ran the Tustamina 200 as my first qualifier in 2017. I think a year or two later, that race stopped happening for a number of reasons. There's the Northern Lights 300. There's a list of 35 races that used to happen that don't happen anymore. If the Willow 300 doesn't happen, like there's going to be people out on these trails running dogs, regardless of if there's an event or not. And it is possible that it does happen. It sounds like they're making maybe some progress to that, but like, honestly, it's not a big deal if it doesn't happen. Like maybe that's what the race needs. I don't know. Maybe they'll rename it and have a different organization, but there's plenty of like ways they could make it happen. But if it doesn't, it's okay. Other races will hopefully come and take their place. Or maybe they just take a year off to figure out the politics or whatever is plaguing the organization. It's really hard to put these things together. It's like, I don't even really truly know, and I think that's a kind of this bad thing. Like a lot of people are like me in the sense that they, show up to the race and you do so much to get your team and yourself ready. You get to the race and maybe there's not quite that level of appreciation that there should be for been able to put this event together. And that's why, like, I always think about Lev talking about him volunteering for the Iditarod and getting that perspective that you can really only get by volunteering. So maybe you'll see me out there volunteering for some of these races and just to see if I can kind of learn from that other side of the fence. Because it is a lot, and we've really loved and appreciated this event over the years, and we hope it'll come back. But if not, I think the world's going to keep spinning, dogs are going to keep pulling, and it'll be just fine.
Nice. Yeah, I think I love that idea for you to maybe do some volunteer work with one of the races. I'm sure we could talk about your experience with that as well. The last thing I wanted to just quickly get your take on, you were kind of talking before we started this, that you did your travel in the Denali area. You saw a couple different teams and mushers, and your take is like, wow, we're deep into training already. We're into this, like the races aren't here, but the training sure damn well is. So just kind of, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, what makes and breaks these teams' races is what's going on when no one's watching, which is, that dog training and conditioning that's happening right now. And right now, like, it's just about getting a base of mileage down. And, so you're going to get that base level of conditioning, but it's also going to spill over into like their behavioral improvements. Like since they're having a lighter running load in the summer, they are higher energy, and usually there's, you see some of these early season videos, or if you ever go mushing with a team in the summer on their first cool morning, and they're pumped, dude. They've been sitting a lot, and it's crazy. Like, so just to get enough running under their belt to where like the hookup process and the team chemistry is just calmer and easier to work with, having an extra set of hands this time of year is pretty nice, because things just go wrong easier when you have such a high energy team. So getting these consistent mileage will just, and this is when you kind of plug and play with your leaders, like who's good at leading. You're not asking much of them. You're not asking them to, hey, we got to go 100 miles, No, it's like, what we're asking is, please don't turn around and mess with the dogs behind you. Please don't just hop off the trail to go eat a flower, go right when I say G and go left when I say ha. So you're working on these little things that may not even pay off for Iditarod 2024. Like it might be things that you don't really see the fruit of your labor until 2025. But, a lot of the training that's happening now, it is going into Iditarod, but it's also spilling over into the next year and the next year after that. And so it's this is nice. Huge, but it's not really looked at much. And we're in it, dude. We're in it right now. Like, so it's happening.
Yeah, no, I mean, if anyone's following the different social media accounts for these different mushers, I mean, it's very apparent that they're heating up and they're really getting things going. So I've been enjoying seeing that content. It's just like one thing that's really stood out to me is we recently started following Thomas Varner, and Brent Sass went on a trip where he was with a couple of folks, and we started following those accounts, and it's just like seeing the training that they're doing, and it's just like, wow, I love this part of the year. I'm excited to see where things go. Did you have something you wanted to add there?
Yeah, that, you have people like Ryan Runnington and Jessie Holmes who've been running their dogs pretty much, 4+ times a week, and bigger miles too, like 10+ mile runs. That I would say that's like an exceptionally lot of running early, but I don't think you need to be fooled into thinking that necessarily means that they're the best team because they did the most running earlier. It's what you're doing. It's the best thing for their team that they think is best for their team, and for some people going on your first 10-mile run, October 1st is best. So, and then there's of course the middle grounds. Most people are somewhere in between, where September 1st is traditionally the first day of training for a lot of teams. And, so just because people are running more or less or somewhere in between doesn't have a real direct affiliation with success. It's like you're just catering to what your dogs need. And for some people, their dogs need a lot of miles, or some people that need the same amount of miles, but spread out over a longer period of time. Some dogs benefit from having a light summer workload where they're just going out hiking and they don't do a ton of work in harness, but they go and have fun. So just because you see Jessie Holmes running 35 miles on the highway in August or whatever, doesn't mean that, someone like Jesse Royer, who's probably not done a 20-mile run yet, is at a particular disadvantage. However, we will say that Jessie Holmes, after you guys listen to this, he looks like he's got one of the best dog teams in the Iditarod. So, and it's not just me saying that. That's like all the other mushers that have seen his team. So,
yeah. Yeah, and on that note, so because like I said, we were trying to do like
whatever,
dude, a 10-minute intro. Sean's over here like fucking 30 minutes later. But listen, you threw me under the bus. You're talking last time you tell Jesse that I can't join the y'all's recording because I'm fucking watching football. Get the hell out of here.
Come on, dude. I gotta give you a little shit.
Jeez. No, so I had a chance to listen and I just think you did a great job. I do want to note that I want to get all three of us together at some point down the road.
Jesse does too.
Jesse, shout out the fact that I think you said something about like, oh, Brendan's not joining. I'm like, that makes my heart a little bit happy.
Yeah.
But these are just a couple of the highlights that I took away from your recording. If there's anything that you want to elaborate on, I think I would love for you to do that. And then we can just get into this interview you did. But the highlights I wrote down. So Jesse talking about his accident and how a house fell on him. And that is just like really interesting. I didn't know all of that. I knew that he had some sort of accident, but I didn't know that it was pretty gnarly and gave him a new perspective. So that was something that stood out to me. Just the highlight of the 23 Iditarod was interesting to learn about the issue with his dogs had some sort of an issue with the paw. I'm not going to give too much away, but you guys can enjoy that. Dude, the guy is just nonstop. That stood out to me, whether it's from a training perspective with his dogs, whether it's a training perspective for him as a human. I just am so impressed. It sounds like he doesn't take a lot of time off, high energy kind of guy. But it's so funny, like just listening to your conversation with him, it's just like, he just seems at like peace. He seems at ease. He seems comfortable. I don't know. I really enjoyed listening to it. A couple things else that stood out to me. I didn't know he was into the short and mid distance racing. I mean, I know he did the shorter, but you guys talk about like sprint races, which is kind of a new subject for me. So that was just something interesting. I got to shout out. He's from the dirty South.
Dirty, dude.
Dirty, bro. Like, thank you. And not that it even really makes that much of a difference, but I just was like, oh man, we're talking to someone who has roots from the South, which is just a little bit different. He's talking about Alabama, Florida, Georgia, moving around. And yeah, I mean, the other thing that really stood out to me is the fact that he is not been in the racing of mushing. He hasn't been in it from like crazy amount of time, but yet he's kind of like thought of as a top tier musher. And so that's just kind of really intriguing to me. So anyways, that's what stood out to me. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, but I just thought I would add my 2 cents since I wasn't able to be a part of it this time.
Yeah. I mean, if you are listening from this point and from the beginning till right now, I might suggest that instead of listening, you should try watching this one, because the most important change in this episode from pretty much all the other ones that we've done is that Jesse and I were sitting down together in a cabin in person, and it's all filmed. And of course, that your boy Sean doesn't have the technological capabilities. Audio ain't perfect, but it's clear enough. And the videos, lighting, probably not ideal, but it's good enough. So it's cool to see me and Jesse sitting down together. And it's I think it's worth just watching if you have the ability to do that. So. Yeah,
100% agree, Sean. I'm glad that you said that. The fact that you guys are sitting down next to each other, I think is huge. And it's just nice to like actually see some of the different reactions. You can see like Jesse at times is kind of deep in thought with some stuff. So I'm glad that you said that. That also reminds me, somewhere like 15 or 20 minutes in, you accidentally must have pressed a button and like the audio kind of like drops a little bit. So just turn up your volume. It's not that big of a deal.
You'll be fine.
One day we'll be pros.
But one day, it'll be in like 7 years, but we will be pros one day.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe like 10.
So, well, with that, is there anything else you want to add before we?
Nah, dude, let's button it up.
Send that shit, baby.
It's I pay like $500 for like 50 pounds, and it's like what 35, 40 fillets.
Oh, you just buy the fillets from them because they'll give you a discount? Nice.
Yeah, they're processed fillets, vacuum sealed and frozen.
Sweet.
And ready to go.
Yeah, frozen, fresh.
Nice. How many salmon you got for in the storage now?
70 something.
70 salmon. Nice. And is that where you're feeding your dogs these days?
No, it's all for me.
Oh, it's all you. You're just housing salmon.
Yeah, I mean, I save the carcasses for my garden. I don't even give them the carcasses. Like
those are good too.
I save it for my garden.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Bury it and compost it, and that's how I started my garden. Was I buried a bunch of fish scraps. And chicken shit. I had chickens. And
there you go for tea.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I quit drinking coffee.
You're probably...
It just was bad for me.
Yeah, it gets out of hand after cup number 2.
It's just so acidic,
Yeah, it definitely...
I've got a problem that they diagnosed me with. Like, I knew I've had a problem for like 8 years. And like I like choke on my food and like can't get much food down. It's part of the reason I got so skinny. It's because I couldn't really eat sometimes. There's like one time I couldn't eat for like almost a week. And whenever I got crushed under the house, they did an MRI on me and they came back and like they were like all like positive that it was like looking pretty good. Like I was like escaping without the internal damage they thought I'd had. And then they came back and they were like, oh my God, we got some bad news. And they're like, your esophagus is damaged.
Damn.
I was like, oh fuck. I was like, is that bad? They're like, yeah, it's bad. I'm like, oh my God.
Damn.
I'm like, went from like elation of like, I think I'm going to be all right, just fucking busted bones.
Right.
And they're like grim, like, and then they were like,
from the fire? Or
from the house collapsing on me.
And how did that whole story? I don't even. Can you start that story if you don't mind sharing?
Well, it turned out that like I had like this mega esophagus, and they were asking me about other things, and they were like, "Oh, okay." They were like, "Thank God." And it was like because my esophagus is hugely enlarged.
Okay.
And like food just gets jammed and stuck in it.
Huh.
Yeah, but now all of a sudden like it's better.
Nice.
Like it's the best it's ever been. I can eat like a motherfucker again. Thank God, because I need to gain some weight.
Yeah, it's easier to gain weight nowadays for me, but yeah, when I was in a dog yard every day, those long hours,
it's all parasites,
you can eat whatever you want.
Worms.
Oh God, you're not deworming yourself?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
All right, we get a little better in this. Yeah, cool, dude. This is our little podcast. Pretty cool.
Cool.
Well, yeah, dude. Thanks for coming on, and this is sick. We're doing this in person. Have some coffee going. Yeah, Jessie Holmes. It's awesome to be able to do this with you in person and dude. So yeah, let's just keep hanging out. Honestly, we don't have to make it a fucking interview.
No Brendan?
Brendan, dude, I know. Brendan, I just called him. He's watching football with the boys.
Bummer, dude. I've kind of become a fan of Brendan listening to you guys' podcast.
Oh man, he's gonna be elated to hear that.
I wanted him to ask me some good questions, dude, from like the people who don't know mushing.
Right. Why don't you, dude, do you know how he's do you listen ever?
I do, yeah. I've listened to almost most of you guys' podcasts.
You know how he likes to start off the podcast?
Not so much as maybe like you guys haven't had anything.
He has like every single time he starts the podcast, he's like, "Alrighty, folks."
Oh yeah.
This is and I was like, when we talked to Ryan last week, and he was like, "Oh, I love listening. I love saying alrighty, folks," with you.
Reddington? Nice.
Yeah, Ryan Reddington.
Awesome.
Yeah. But I'm gonna put this in the sink real quick. But nice, man. So how'd you get into dogs?
Me, I got into dogs. I was in Dawson City 20 years ago, and I really wanted to get into mushing and living out in the bush, and so I went out on a trap line with a guy who'd run the Yukon Quest 7 times, Corgimon.
Okay.
And his partner, Agata, she was from Poland. She was going to run the Quest that year, so I helped her with a fish wheel. It was my first time working with a fish wheel. And put up thousands of salmon.
Damn.
And they had like 50 dogs on this island upriver of Dawson City, and it was like paradise to me, and I was like helping her train dogs for the Yukon Quest. I knew nothing. Zero.
What year is this?
This was like 2014, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, that's
2014.
Like it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I helped her. And then Cora asked me if I wanted to go up on the trap line 50 more miles upriver for the winter. And I was like, yeah. So I went out and lived on this remote trap line, and we ran dogs to run the trap line.
And so you're just like in a tent pretty much? And
oh, no, he was a master craftsman building cabins and boats. Okay. And so it's kind of like where I kind of figured out, I was like, I never wanted to race dogs. It never sounded appealing to me for some reason. I was like, well, that's cool. I just want to be able to haul wood and water and, hunt and travel with dogs. So I kind of knew that that's the lifestyle I wanted to live.
Yeah. Yeah, and me and you are both from the dirty South, man.
Way dirty South, yeah.
The dirty. Yeah, where is it? Alabama?
I was born in Alabama, lived in Georgia, Florida. Nice. Yeah.
What part of Georgia were you in?
Columbus.
Columbus.
Yeah.
Right on. That's crazy.
And outside of Atlanta, too. Douglasville.
Yep. I was northeast Atlanta, but it was a proper suburb. But,
yeah.
But nice, man. So you had your team this year in Iditarod. Oh man, it was such a cool, like, everybody in the mushing community, all over the internet at least, and people that I talked to, they just were like, just love looking at your dogs. I mean, they just are they're high speeds, wagging tails at the finish line. Just they looked like they were ready to go around and mush right back to Anchorage, man. That's what it's all about, and that's like, it gives me the chills just thinking about it. And I saw that, you were up front there, right at the front of the pack, and then, maybe you lost some speed, or maybe you're like, I'm not seeing what I'm liking from the dogs. I'm going to rest a little extra. Maybe I don't know if you took an additional rest or if you maybe just added some hours to the rests. And then boom, you go charging back to the front of the pack. What'd you finish this year? It was
fifth place. Yeah.
I mean, hell yeah, dude. So
to me, it was my best finish by far. I mean, the year before I got third, but it had zero adversity. And getting third, it was just kind of, that team was really well set up, and, I think some of the other competition struggled, and I capitalized on that, and it was just the easiest race of my life. This year, like, I was like, I'm racing to win this thing, because I'd had a major accident, and everything was against me, so, nobody expected anything of me, so I had nothing to lose, kind of mentality. And I was like, I'm going to go see what it's like to race at the front of this thing finally. And if it doesn't work out, it's going to be information for next year. And the thing was is that I got to Anvik and left there 2 hours ahead of record pace, setting the pace all the way to there.
Damn.
That far into the race. But I had a problem that nobody else really knew about. My dog's feet had been retaining moisture in this product I had been using on it with the heat. Just kind of their feet blew up, and I was like, the race is over for me. Mm-hmm. If like you said, I got to finish with that team looking strong, healthy, happy, like I have every single time, because I make that promise to them. And if that's not going to happen, then I'm going to start adding rest. And so I started adding rest, and, I was depleted. I started 145 pounds. It was really easy to get emotional at that point, all I'd been through that winter. So I kind of maybe threw up the white flag way too hard. And I really started adding a lot of rest. And then I overslept at Tripod Flats cabin, where I stopped for an extra rest. And, man, I left there with a rocket ship. I was there 6.5 hours.
You couldn't have been that mad about it. It's like,
no, I wasn't that mad about it, because I did what I set out to do. I built that team back to where they were, I don't want to lose the trust those dogs give me. It means way too much to me. And, seeing them finish like that means way too much to me. So that did the job. I was going 11.5 miles an hour after that at times.
Nice.
And going too fast. And, I kind of regretted it once I got to Unalakleet, because it was like, wow, man, I'm not even looking at being in the top 10 here.
Right.
I'm out of the top 10.
Damn,
everybody,
you were that far back?
Yeah, I fell out of the top 10, and Eddie and Hunter were way ahead of me, and you know, no, all of a sudden nobody wants to interview me anymore, you know? They're like, man, it was so cool. I was in the top of the race and that was a big deal. And now I'm like, nobody again. And I was like, well, really what I didn't realize is I love that and I thrive off of that, the opportunity to try to catch up.
Yeah.
You know?
And what was your runs from Caltag? But from Tripod is like the first cabin there, so that's like 50 miles from Unalakleet or something.
Yeah, it takes off a good 24 miles of that run, so about 50.
And so you went from Tripod to, what were your runs from Tripod to Nome? Like, what were those runs?
I went to Unalakleet, then
to White Mountain.
Then I was like, okay, man, this is the real deal here. I'm looking at not finishing in the top 10, so I was like, it's time to, you know, be uncomfortable. So I skipped Shack Tulik because I got trapped there the year before in the storm.
Yeah.
I was like, no way, man. I'm just going through here.
Yeah.
And instead of going to that cabin, I was like, man, cabins are the enemy to me now. Yeah. And I was like, and I had to like throw the competition off because these guys are no joke. Eddie and Hunter and Kelly Maxner, a lot of good teams there. And I still was thinking to catch Matt, and I still wasn't counting myself out to get back into the top 3. So I went 8 miles past there and just slept on the sea ice. And
damn,
wind, it was like 40 below wind chill.
Oh, what was the wind doing?
Oh, it was like, blowing.
Yeah.
But you know what? That was like the funnest time of my life. I mean, here I was like, dude, we are so friggin' hardcore right now.
Yeah.
It just felt so badass, you know? Like, I got on my sleeping bag. I had a good nap.
Dogs got
some good. They got the coats on. They were smart. They know how to bundle up and together. You know, they kind of bundle up together.
That point in the race, like that's something that I've only been past the 500 mile, you know, distance twice. But the things you can do with a team that's in this travel mode and they're like just calm,
they're smart,
you know, and you know you can oftentimes I hear the people just, you know, have your dogs just all in one giant cuddle ball.
Dude, that's the best way to arrest them.
That's like,
back before I went to the short lines, I was able to just like take the long lines, put them on their neck, pick these guys, put them on their neckline, boom, 4, 4, 4.
Nice.
And I was really like that.
Up together, and yeah, it's probably nice and toasty for them.
But then after that, I was like, you know, I Eddie and Hunter were having incredible runs, and I was like, there's no way I'm getting beat by these rookies, man. You know, like, because that's what's happening right now. And so I went through Koyuk, you know, and Matt Failer was there having an awesome run. I went through Koyuk. I went up to the top of the hill, and I weighed the team down with all the stuff to go camp up there, and I stayed there an hour and 10 minutes. And I was like, I threw down the gauntlet.
This was at Koyuk.
Yeah, out of Koyuk, up on the hill where you could see.
So you'd gone,
but the whole being able to see all the way to Koyuk didn't work out because all these clouds moved in. So I was like getting antsy, and I was like, well, may as well just go.
Yeah.
So we only rested an hour and 10 minutes, and they picked up speed from that.
And then you went from Koyuk to Elam, and did you stop in Elam?
Yeah, I stopped in Elam for 3 hours and saw Eddie there, and and Matt Failer was there, and you know, I what's his name was Maxner was long gone, so it was looking like I could still get, you know, 6th. Yeah, I was thinking.
Yeah, and
because they were definitely they were back together finally. Because what happened is that they were happy as hell to go fast. Their feet didn't hurt when they could go fast. But when the trail conditions blew in and the pulling got hard out of Eagle Island, like they had to like really pull. Mm-hmm. It hurt their feet to spread their feet out. Mm. You know, because it was like the webbing. My mentor, Bill Cotter, was the one that helped me figure out why they could, like, because if they ever got going fast on some ice, they'd start biting each other and yelling and like, yeah, let's go.
Oh, okay.
And they wanted to fly, but like up hills and like hard pulling, they just couldn't really go. But out of Elam, I was ripping up McKinley.
Nice.
I mean, like I was like, this is my dog team.
Hell yeah.
You know, when I left Anvik, I was like head hung down. I was thinking about going to Grayland and getting on an airplane home, because I was like, you know, when my dogs don't bark to go, my dogs always bark to go.
You're right.
They're a high attitude team, and they didn't have that leaving Anvik. And but you know, it was a great experience to run that record pace to that point. It gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
I know that like I don't belong laying back in the back anymore. Up front's where I should be.
Yeah.
I like the feeling. I like the thrill. It's like a wave,
I don't know.
You catch that wave, and it's easier to stay up there.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't catch that wave, like, you got to crest that wave to try to catch up there. It's really hard.
You probably find some reserves of energy just on the idea that, Eddie's right behind me.
Totally.
Brent, right up there.
For me, it was Brent, like I was going against, in my mind, the best in the world. And, until Brent, scratched out at Eagle Island, it was like, it's me and him is the way I saw it.
Right.
Because I didn't see the feet thing coming. Right. And it happened really quick, it took the attitude out of the dogs.
They're a little inflamed from the moisture. And
I was using this.
Probably like if you could have given them a 24-hour rest, they'd be good to go.
I had caught on to it in my 24-hour rest, But like I started with immaculate feet. And I just kind of was like working on everything else double time. And I was like putting this ointment on their feet thinking I was like doing them good.
Yeah, sometimes isn't it funny how sometimes you feel like you want the feeling of doing something good for them.
And I was like, I'm going the extra mile this year, man.
Yeah. That extra mile ended up being the...
Totally. It cost me some extra miles.
Yeah, sure.
But, that's learning. And that's the Iditarod. We're always learning out there. We're always
no one's got
now that's now that's a mistake I will be on top of, and I won't let that get me again. It'll be on to the next thing that might get me, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
because there's a long list of them.
Absolutely, man.
So winning the Iditarod is like the musher being as close to 100%, and the dog team being as close to 100%, and it all coming together.
Yeah, it's like you can have. How often does the best trained dog team win the Iditarod? Almost never.
Yeah.
It's like
it's the best managed dog team.
Best managed, right? Yeah. And it's just like in other sports where you might have this football team is better than the other football team, but it's just one game, and you got to make those decisions.
I mean, we don't get 20 games to play a year, so we invest, 350 days thinking about those
just this
10
one
days.
trip. Yeah, that's the other 350 days. Yeah.
But that's what's awesome about it, Like I feel so motivated every one of those days in between Iditarod, and it's not just about those 10 days. It's about having that championship mindset and that attitude all year round.
So your dogs,
and if I had won, maybe I wouldn't have that, and I wouldn't have got to keep growing. And
you got it,
Like I've been so hungry ever since then. Dude, like the day I got to know him, I started running my dogs.
Right. If you wanted to be like, we're taking a couple.
I think people thought I was crazy, but I was like training for the 440 starts now because we finished with so much. Yeah, we finished with so much steam in the tank. Like these dogs were just banging the harnesses at the finish line. Weight was awesome. Didn't get the Vet's Choice Award, probably never will, obviously, if you can't get it with finishing with 10 dogs when everybody else in the top 10 finishes with like 6 or 7.
Right.
And with that healthy of a team, you're probably never going to get it.
Right.
So, but I knew, and everybody else knew, and the mushing community was like awesome in like building up that accomplishment.
Yeah.
They really recognized, so many people were like, dude, your team looked amazing. And that meant so much to me to have like all my fellow mushers recognize how awesome that team looked at the finish line. And I knew that meant we could go to the 440 and win.
Yeah.
So we started running the dogs the next day.
And then you went to the 440?
Yeah, I ran them like 350 miles in between the Iditarod and the 440, which is a couple weeks. Yeah. And normally, people go rest them for like 10, 12 days and then do a couple runs and go. That's the standard. But I just went home and did a 115-mile race. Came in second to Dave Turner. We made about 11 miles an hour with the whole Iditarod crew. And so I knew my speed was up and the team was feeling great. And then I even come home and did a couple more 55-mile runs before the race.
Wow. That's so wait, did you win the
Kobuk? Yeah, I won it. I won it by 3 hours and gave an hour extra rest.
I remember it was a total domination.
It was a brutal trail too, It was
everybody kept on saying
conditions.
The quote of that race was, Man, the Iditarod was a vacation.
Totally. That's what I said. It's like a vacation, right? Yeah.
Man. Everyone that trickled in behind you said the same thing.
It's like 45 below, and like the wind blowing and like the trail never set up. And, they have a large pack of snow machines that travel along the trail. And they call themselves the trail breakers. Well, the trail's already broken. They break the trail up.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's the thing, and in all those races, Iditarod, I remember that's been a point of contention, but it's a public trail, right? So anyone can be on it. But when you have the trail eventually settles and gets crispy, and you have these long sleds and it's on a thin layer of hard trail, and on a sled it'll stay like that because you're sliding on top of the snow and ice. It's lightweight, right? Yeah. And then the way a snow machine works is it digs down through that crust and then propels itself forward. So it's just turning it back into this sugary, not cement like those hard trails you go faster.
Totally.
So it's like
I would get about sometimes I'd get 20 miles out of the checkpoint because, Ed Eaton, he's won it 7 times and he's the trail boss guy. And they'll be like, well, what time are you going to be leaving here? And I'm like, oh, well, that's time. And, man, I would boogie. I'd drive them dogs as fast as I could until they pass me.
Yeah.
Because then it's like we're going 7.5 miles an hour.
Instantly 2 miles an hour slower.
It was crazy because here I was dominating the race going 7.5 miles an hour doing these 11.5-hour runs. But, man, you talk about a real race to set up your team for the next year in Iditarod or set up a rookie team. I always want to tell all rookies that are going to get into the Iditarod, go to the 440 the year before. You will learn what you need to learn big time there, and you will develop your team in a great way where they will be bulletproof mentally the next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some longer runs and windy trails, and I guess cold too. And you don't think of it as cold.
It's real wilderness.
From the cozy, warm cabin I'm sitting in. Yeah, you're thinking, it's April.
People make a big mistake thinking it's going to be warm in the 440. I've run it 5 times now, and man, I've seen it be really cold out there. And so I went there. I have hardly any body fat on me. I went there prepared for 50 below zero, and I was happy that I was because it was cold.
Yikes.
To be out there 11-hour runs, 11.5-hour run was the longest run.
That is a nice marathon.
Totally.
And how do you talk about going on a run that's over, typically 50, 60 miles is like your standard Iditarod run. And for some mid-distance races like the Copper Basin, and the Willow 300, they kind of have enough mandatory rests to where you're really not going to be doing those longer runs. So it's a completely different style of just has the fastest team because they're all going to be pretty well rested with 18 hours of mandatory rest or whatever. But when you do the Cusco or the Kobuk and it's a shorter rest, it's like, what is it like? I don't know. It's a whole different mentality going and running that distance on several levels. And I don't know, what's like, as a musher, what is your the top things on your mind are how can we make this, successful?
I would definitely say the preparation level that goes into being ready for a race like the Kuskokwim 300, in January, or the Copper Basin. You got that extra 2 months to get ready for Iditarod. Iditarod, you can run your schedule that's best suiting your dogs. When you go to these mid-distance races and you're going to be competitive, you have to run these long runs. If they're long runs, you have to take this much rest, and that's the only choice you have. So your team really needs to be prepared for that. You have to. I feel like if I'm racing the Cusco 300, which I haven't done in years because I've chose to focus on Iditarod, and I feel like they don't really suit each other.
Yeah.
But that used to be my main goal. My rookie Iditarod year, Iditarod was my B race.
Okay.
Cusco 300 was my A race.
Nice. And what year was your rookie year?
2018.
Okay.
So I went to the Cusco with that being my priority. I wanted to win that race really badly. Mm-hmm. And I have yet to do it. But I've got the 3rd fastest time ever there.
Damn. And that was the Matt Taylor
year? 36 hours and 40-something minutes.
Damn. Yeah, 40 hours.
I was 18 minutes off of winning.
Wow.
And I made some mistakes there in the end. And the biggest mistake I made is I gave up kind of in my mind and thought Failer was going to steal it, you know?
Yeah.
I thought he had it, you know, he was on that Magic Carpet. I'd never think that until the race is over.
Did he not end up on?
Oh, he did, yeah. But he was slowing down a little, and I was actually had the potential to, you know,
close the gap a little bit.
Yeah, when he passed me the last 100, like out of the checkpoint, like it was like, okay, bye-bye, this guy's gone.
Yeah.
I gave up in my mind, and I started thinking about what's behind me.
Yeah.
And then I turned my headlamp off, and I went 2 wrong trails. That cost me, like, you know, quite a bit of minutes each time.
Damn.
So, you know, never give up.
There's a lot of
You can't give up. You got to have a non-give-up mentality in mid-distance.
Yeah.
People don't realize how tough it is to be competitive in a mid-distance race.
It is. I think that in some ways...
You ain't going to sleep.
Yeah.
You don't sleep in mid-distance.
I think in some ways mid-distance races, certain aspects are tougher than the Iditarod for, like, you know, especially for even for the non-competitive mid-distance mushers, it's still pretty, like... Yeah. It's still like, and you know, you get in a rhythm in Iditarod at least, and you can kind of like,
rest rhythm,
you know, and you got a 24-hour rest in there, and you know, but I know that you're right, you're not exactly sleeping that much, you know, getting to Anvik in first or second place. You probably didn't do a whole lot of sleeping.
Well, getting there first place, you definitely don't get much sleep because you're doing the meal, you know.
Yeah.
The whole ceremony for the first Yukon.
Yeah,
meal.
You're sitting. Yeah, what's up?
You're getting a good meal, but you're not getting much sleep.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. I always wonder about that. Like, is that a mandatory meal? Kind of like it's kind of disrespectful not to do it.
Brent skipped it in Ruby the year before when he won, but he like gave it to Billy Honey, who's a checker there.
Gotcha.
And yeah, you know, pretty smart, Brent. I looked at that and I was like, how could you do that?
Pretty smart.
I was like, damn, that's genius.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that I would imagine. Like, I just imagined like the slowest meal ever. Like people come out and they do like a toast and they're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Jessie Holmes." And
totally, it was like live on Facebook.
You're like sitting here, like it's been 15 minutes. I haven't even eaten yet.
It was really.
I appreciate the sentiment, but
tell you what, it was really heart touching. Like, you know, it's 3 a.m. and like all these people from the village are there. You know, and it's a big deal for them, and so. Yeah, you know, it felt really good. Like, in my mind, I looked at my dog's feet whenever I was taking care of him there, and I was like, you know, my race for first is over in my mind. I may as well enjoy, you know, the fruits of my labor to this point, you know, because it's not easy to get there in first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in conclusion, I guess the best way to prepare your team for these longer runs is to prepare your team for these longer runs.
Go do a lot of races.
All that work when all the work that you do when people aren't following you on the tracker. Out here, you live in the bush. You're in the winter, and now in this time of year you can at least drive your truck there. But for half the year, you're snow machining 25 miles or mushing 25 miles just to get to your place. But yeah, just training your dogs for what you're planning on, how you're planning on running the race. Like, you can't just show up to the race and be like, I want to win this race, and not have trained your team to have that competitive schedule. Because that's a mistake, you know, that can happen. You know, people think, this is the schedule though. This is what Brent did last year. I'll just do that schedule. And it's like, well, have your dogs done that schedule yet?
Yeah, Brent lives like that on the trail.
Dude, he's like friggin' mushing scheduled 365.
I tried to match Brent's schedule, you know, this year, and it's like, I mean, I'm a capable musher, and I trained for that, you know, and I think I'm one of the people that schedule, and it didn't quite work out for me the whole way, but I've learned so much from that schedule that he does, and I really liked it. I liked camping out a lot out of the checkpoints, you know, and it suited me because I live that lifestyle.
Right.
Training, camping all the time.
Yeah, you do. You tell me you're getting up at 3:30 in the morning earlier this summer just to get some cool.
I trained all summer.
All summer, huh?
I think my dogs had 3-week off season this year.
Nice. And yeah, it's like it's good to keep them moving. You know, they get 3 weeks.
Their hearts are going to be, you know, bigger because of it.
Do you think that, like, now that you've run them this much in the summer, and having gotten up in the wee hours of the morning to try to run them when it's 40 degrees out or whatever, do you think, like, now that they've already got a few hundred miles under them this summer, that now you have like a more spaced out kind of like just like it's going to be a longer window of time of training, but maybe a similar amount of mileage? Or do you think because you started early, you're going to maybe do a little more mileage?
The one thing I'm working with this year that's different than in the past is I have 2 spectacular teams that are both talented in different directions. I have 14 dog team of Iditarod veterans that I trust to go and race the Iditarod with.
And their age-ish is
their age is, there's a lot of 3-year-olds that have finished it,
Okay.
And they're 3+, and then the next group is 4, and the next is 5, and then I have some ones that are just turning 7. Like 7 will be the oldest in that group. Team. Yeah, that's right. 14 dogs.
Okay.
And, those dogs are amazing. And most of them won the 440 with me as well. And multiple Copper Basin finishers, multiple Iditarod finishers, stack full of leaders, big, strong dogs. Well, that team, doesn't need to go train 5,000 miles or 4,000 miles, I did last year with them.
Right.
But now I have this mid-distance team that I've been building to go back to Bethel, go to the Knik 200, let off the brake a little in the Ace race.
Do the 12 mile an hour.
And try to go back and win the Kobuk 440 again this spring.
Nice.
So, and I need that because I have so much energy. I need to train a team 5,000 miles, I love doing that. So, I love developing the dogs. So my goal with the Iditarod team is to see them do about 2,500 miles. They're up to doing 28-mile runs right now.
Nice.
So I only run them few times a week, mostly 8.5-mile runs to make sure I don't put the mileage too high up on them. And then when I go a long run, like every 10 days with them, like 27 miles.
Okay.
So they're really not, I don't want their mileage to progress now.
Right.
They progressed over the last few months. But the other team, I'm running them every day, all the time. That's 18
mid-distance team.
18 dogs, mid-distance team. And then there's a lot of dogs in the C team that could back that up, but I've pretty much identified the most talented in this team. And that's going to go to I'm going to run the Knik 200. I'm going to train them really hard. I'm going to run the K300. And then I'll take the Iditarod team for their final tough training run would be the Copper Basin, and I will not be racing that to be competitive. I'll be racing it to finish with as many dogs.
And
great mental setup.
That's a really good similar schedule for Iditarod too, right?
It's such a good race.
Yeah.
I mean, I was terrified of it for years. People were like, "You gonna ever do the Copper?" I was like, "Nope, never gonna do it. Nope."
Toughest 300 miles in Alaska is what they call it.
I just hear all these stories about the trail falling apart, and I was like, "No, that doesn't sound like my type of cup of tea."
That was my first 300, dude. I was like, and it was just nuking snow, like 35 degrees above zero.
Everybody's got to do that race,
and it was like I was just wet the whole time, and I had 2-year-olds, that never raced before. It was like I learned a lot, and you just, I remember I learned the lesson of pick and choose your moments to like encourage your dogs and maybe get a little extra speed out of them. Like I remember, because I'd never seen the dogs run that far. I'd done a 200, I'd done the Tustamina.
Or go that slow, right?
Or that slow, right? And I'm like, so we're going, they just like, when it's warm out, the dogs self-regulate. Like there's an element of responsibility that you have to keep them, cool down, take enough breaks, roll around in the snow. But then they also, when it's warm out, even in the summer and they're out at their house, you just see them, they're lower energy level because we're going, it's 80 degrees out in the summer. Or in this case, in the winter, 35 degrees feels like 80 degrees to them. Yeah. So they just kind of start to, and I'm just kind of saying
travel
listening,
along.
They just travel along, and they're like, all right, well, we're not going to go 11 miles an hour.
And the smart musher learns to just let them do that.
Let it be. It's like, and you can see that they're like not really giving a huge effort, and it's good. Like you don't want them to, Jeff always said, does it look easy for the dogs? Right. And that's like a really simple advice that'll just take you a really long way.
Yeah, you've had some great opportunities to learn mushing from some of the greats. You know, like you worked with Jeff there, and then you worked with Dallas for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Run and trained with Dallas.
I got to be like intimately part of an Iditarod winning team.
When we cut the camera off here, I'm going to start asking questions.
I don't know. Yeah, no, that would be fun. But yeah,
definitely familiar with Jeff's dogs. You know.
Yeah, you
can read a lot about a person's breeding program and training program. If you speak dog, I speak dog. So I've got a lot. I kind of like 7 years ago, I started buying quite a bit of dogs from Jeff, and I've pretty much built my breeding program around a lot of those dogs.
Okay, yeah, they're
real athletes, man.
They're super athletic. They've got a super friendly disposition, like just and that I really loved working with Jeff's dogs.
You buy a dog from Jeff. It goes home, you turn it loose, it runs to your door, you open the door, and it goes and jumps into your bed. Like, hey, this is where I hang out.
Sick, all right. Yeah, you built out.
They're like already perfectly trained pet dog, you know?
Hilarious. So you have like the strength of your Iditarod team, like, you know, what do you think is your style? You know, Dallas is he has these short runs, kind of tends to lurk in the back and creep forward in the midway. Jeff's got, you know, tough dogs, fast dogs.
Great at 100-mile runs.
Great, you know. So what is it like that when you think of like your team? Like Ryan said that his team, Ryan Reddington, he said his team excels in warmer temperatures because he's training down in Wisconsin. I thought that was a super fascinating thing, and that like. When people that train in Fairbanks and Two Rivers and they're out in 30 below all winter long, and
even where I'm at, it's really cold where I'm at.
So you know that's a
you saw that with Thomas, you know, the year that Thomas won with those warm years, and you definitely seen that with Ryan this year. He really excelled.
Yeah,
I think, you know, it's just like Ryan though. It's not just because his dogs excel in the warmth; it's the full package. So you know, I'm trying to bring the full package to the race. That's prepared for everything, so I'm not just like gonna go there and be like, well, you know, it's not hard and fast, it's just not our year.
Right.
You know, we need to be prepared for the whole thing.
Right.
And you know, one ways I'm gonna work about, you know, making sure we're gonna do that this year is I'm gonna train out of Brushcanna a lot more. I've already set up to travel. I've already been traveling up to, you know, spot up Valdez Creek where I like to train.
Yeah.
We're training for water. You know, crossing big rivers, like, you know, that's huge to me because I'm going to the Cusco with a new team.
Right.
And I've got these, like, 2-year-old leaders, these yearling leaders, these 3-year-old leaders that, like, they're already, like, charging across, like, moving water. You know?
Right. Dude, that is, like, after having experienced one end of the spectrum of the confident dogs going through water, you're gonna see water out on the trail in the winter.
Yeah,
but winter and water are not meant to be together. They end up being together inevitably.
So train for it while you can, you know.
And so even just in this fall when there's puddles all over the place, and just having your team trained to like. Sometimes a dog who's unfamiliar with water, their instinct is they see the water, they can't see the bottom of the puddle, they don't know how deep it is, it's splashing everywhere. There's a dog team that's kind of like leading them into this thing, so they will just get up and on the bank of the trail and avoid the puddle and then come back on.
Yeah.
And my understanding of how to train a dog to be is you just go nice and slow, maybe through the water the first time that they've done it, and they kind of like are up on the bank and they're like, wait, I can just this is only like this deep of water.
Yeah.
It's 2 inches deep. We're good. And that the next time they come, they know what to expect, and then you gain that confidence. And then
definitely good to train them in the summer when it's warm and they're like eager to get in the water.
Exactly,
you know?
Right. And you're crossing out you're crossing full on creeks that are, you know, maybe a foot deep, you know, out there.
One of the things that like I was really happy to see with my team is like the young ones. I just put them in lead to go back through the river crossings. And they went all the way upstream because they did it one time and they figured this out. They go way up because they know once they get out in the current, it's actually like 2.5, 3 feet deep. Mm-hmm. They're full on swimming at one point. They go up because they know they're going to get swept downstream.
Oh,
and so they like start high, and then so they like pull out.
That's pretty clever, man.
Yeah, with a 22 dog team, like pretty.
So they just kind of banana around, and then the water just straightens
the
banana right
One
out.
thing I'd say is like I go up there like couple times a month. I'm not gonna like overdo it.
Yeah, you don't want it to be. That is a really good point, and that's a lesson I think I learned at like Dallas is that I was doing that like and it's also sometimes you can't avoid the water like if it's as much as it's been raining this summer and stuff like sometimes you just gotta
a lot of people are going through a lot of puddles right now, and that gets a little old to the dogs too sometimes. Like,
so you want it to be fun for them, but if you don't expose your dogs to the water in this time of year, and then even in the winter, it's important. It's distinct experience. They might not be as comfortable when you see that dreaded overflow coming up when you're mushing on a river or a lake. The water is still underneath the ice. It's never like a lake just completely freezes.
Right.
Because the ice gets thick enough, gets 5-6 feet thick, and then it's insulating the water underneath it so that the cold air doesn't reach it. You got water. So then it finds its way up, right? As the ice gets thicker, the water needs to escape. So you get overflow.
Bad deal if you're, team doesn't trust you. What it really comes down to, though, for me, is building that trust so we're ready for every situation. And that's where I just see that team excelling so much. They trust me so much because I'm always the guy working with them. And I've been working with them all summer, and it was like awesome to go up there to that area where we can do that because, your typical 25, 30-mile run that we're doing right now offers no challenge. They're in shape for it. It's not hard for them. And we've been training for 3 months, and, there's not really any challenge to that. So we go up there, and then we got to climb some friggin' hills. We're doing 2,500 foot of climbing up Valdez Creek. It's at some mining roads, to the east of me.
An active gold mine that's out there.
And then there's the road is a river basically in places.
I've been up that road in the summer.
And so then these dogs, there were some young dogs in that team that I was like, I just don't think Hudson's got it. He doesn't have the mind, I'm just thinking this specific dog. After he did those 4 river crossings, he looked at me completely different. He acted completely different. He was like, "Hey, I'm the man. I just crossed the river. Did you see that?" He's just eyes changed.
Yeah.
And they just go through this challenge and they look to you because you stayed calm and you praise them and you're supportive of them. And then they're just they kind of puff their chest up.
Actually, I am pretty badass.
I didn't really think too much of myself, but then I crossed those big rivers and I was like, I'm kind of the man.
I don't know.
I swear, ever since that, a week ago, Hudson's he doesn't need to wear a neckline anymore. He's puffing his chest out. He goes through the puddles. He's like, oh, this is nothing, man. I crossed the big river.
That is so cool.
So having some adversity in training is key to kind of build that bond and relationship.
Yeah, that trust, man. It's imagine in a dog's mind they get to some situation that a team maybe with a little less, they don't have as tight of a musher dog bond, which you can do like Kelly. He did a pretty good race and he didn't know the dog super well, but they're very well trained. They're used to being around multiple people, right?
But then when it really got tough, though, he had the struggles.
He had the struggles, right?
And that's where that relationship with your dogs,
and your dogs,
Dallas would have been there.
Right. It
wouldn't have been a big deal, I'm pretty sure, because they're bonded to him.
Right. Yeah, and that's, something that, you get these dogs in a situation, let's say that this bridge that's crossing this water is broken and we got to, unhook a couple dogs and I'm going to have to do this and that. And the dogs, that have that trust, they're just sitting around this is totally chill. Dad knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't even need to worry about what's going on right now. And then and that's just that, and it can get kind of tricky having your dogs, with a little bit of anxiety crossing some water. And I
think, a guy could have nowhere near the best athletes or the best team or high dollar equipment, but have that bond with the dogs where things that slow other people down don't slow you down.
Yeah. And then when I ran Dallas's dogs, I spent all winter with them. Mm-hmm. But even then, that's not that much time relative to how you're spending with your dogs. They're mostly all born and raised with you, right? You probably have adopted
and I added in a few, you know.
And you know, but
I love adding in a few though. I love like I just got 5 dogs from Dallas.
Nice.
And man, it just
how old are they?
They're one's just turning 4, and the other one's just turning 3. Angel and Feta.
Oh, nice.
And then I got this one taco, not taco, fajita, chalupa, and chorizo.
Those things are
that are 2 going to turn 3. They're tiny, but they're perfect for my mid distance team. I was looking to beef up my mid distance team.
And you've done this a bunch with,
and it's just fun to have to get into the mentality of a different breed of dog and like see how they work, see their quirks, see their positives, and like learn from them.
Love that
teach
diversity.
them and train them,
and they're probably also teaching your dogs a new perspective on things and a new vibe. And
well, it's just fun. Like that's where I'm so thrilled to train this whole new team.
Yeah,
and like to be like, I'm not worried about going to the Cusco to race for first or the Connect to race for first being consequential to my Iditarod.
You're right, because
my Iditarod team's set. And, you know, we're back to 16 dogs. Very happy about that.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, totally.
Whoa.
That's a huge thing. That's a big deal, you know?
That's huge. So we start with 16 again, and that's
better for the dogs.
Yeah.
You know?
Why? Well, explain.
Because, you know, it's better for the dogs because the musher's going to make more sound decisions for the most part. You know, especially not everybody's got all the experience that, you know, 5-10 Iditarod finishers have. You know, you're not going to get down to 8 dogs and be discouraged. You're going to have that extra power in there. And, like, one thing I'll tell you, man, you're never dropping your worst dog. Your worst dog ends up making it all the way to Nome. This is my experience, 6 Iditarods. The worst dog in your team makes it all the way to Nome. The best dog that gives it everything that you need the most ends up something happens.
Okay, so when you say worst dog, you mean like going into the race. This is the dog.
Dog number 16. Lowest.
Barely made it.
Yeah.
To the cut.
Probably not the hardest worker in the world. Yeah. You know, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
And then that dog makes it all the way, and then like you drop your 2 main leaders.
Your all-stars, right? They're like, these guys I'm going to depend on heavily, and then they end up having.
Gives you a huge room for it. And plus, you know, it's like, you know, you're going up over the Alaska range. It's like everybody's kind of sharing the load. You know, they used to do it with 20 dogs commonly. I just seen something that Ryan posted. Did you see the picture of his grandfather, 71 years old, I believe it was, running a 21-dog team in Connect. Did you see how much snow was on the trail?
Not much.
It looked like a Kuskokwim River trail.
Oh, my God.
And that was, like, common back then.
Just, like, barely any snow.
I think those guys were such better dogmen.
Yeah.
You know, like, those guys knew their dogs. You know, like, 20 dogs listened to them.
Right.
And I train big teams commonly, so like I wish it'd go back to 20 dogs.
Yeah. I think what is the problem with as you get more and more dogs, the reality is it's expensive to handle a bunch of dogs that you're sending home. So you start with 24.
But I think see, ever since they've went to 14 dogs, my first race was 16. I have paid attention to it greatly. Like you have more drop dogs. Huh. You have people finishing with like extremely small teams, 7 dogs all the time now. Like I've kind of stayed right around the 10-dog range throughout my whole Iditarod career. I've never finished with less than 9.
So you start with 16 dogs, and you're like, I remember this is a good reason to drop a dog that people may not know. It like often I think I've sent a dog home just because I thought that maybe something was wrong, but I didn't really know what it was. Mm-hmm. But I was spending all of my mental energy thinking about maybe something's different, and this dog.
He's not gelling at that moment.
I just don't want to think about it anymore, and I'm not sure that maybe they are fine, and maybe I'm just in my head, but just the burden of worrying is enough of a reason to send the dog home. Well, if you start with 14 dogs. And you've sent a couple of them that, they clearly have a sore wrist.
You're like, man, damn, I'm down to 9 dogs.
Down to 9 dogs, and you're like, well, I think I'm not sure. Well, maybe you're going to end up keeping that dog on the team.
Yeah.
And
you'll see it. Some of these mushers are really tough, man. They'll go, like, a long ways with 7 dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's great.
Right.
It's not great for the dogs.
You know, just like...
At the end of the day, you got to be, like... what's good for the dogs.
Right.
You know, you want to talk about the things that the sport should do. And I mean, I just remember, you know, and there's some people that know a lot more than me, or probably a lot smarter than me, been doing it a lot longer than me. They're like, oh, this is going to be better for the dogs. I'm like, how in the fuck is this going to be better for the dogs?
What?
Because, you know, like, I'm friends with a lot of the old school mushers.
Right.
You know, Bill Cotter's been one of my greatest mentors. I've sat around drinking coffee with Bill. I can't count how many times with, you know, stats. You know, they didn't used to have this, you know, information on websites.
Right.
But every year they used to, like, sit around clipping out newspaper articles so they could figure out the times of the competition. And, like, you know, just everything noted down.
Back in the
so, like, when I started the Iditarod, I wasn't a rookie. In a sense, because I spent so much time poring over these stats, you know, and listening to all these elders' wisdom that ran in a different era, you know. And you know what? I trust what they say. It's like, yeah, going to 14 dogs was not good for the dogs.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to go. I like running a big team because also for me, it's like a robbery, you know, to like not develop those 2 more dogs future.
Right.
You know, because not everybody can afford or pull off sending 2 teams to Nome every year.
Right.
You know, and developing. So I'm kind of like wanting to develop those 2 more dogs.
Yeah, that is nice.
And those are 2 dogs that get a chance a lot of times.
This is like...
And then they take that chance and they make something great out of it.
Absolutely. Having those like young, inexperienced dogs that with that youthful bliss and high energy, and they don't know what they're getting into necessarily, but they're just excited to be there. You know, that's contagious to the rest of the team. I remember Allie Zirkle said on like one of her like bib drawing speeches things, or maybe it was on a podcast or something. I love hearing her talk about dogs. Every time I hear Allie
she's
talk,
so awesome.
Like everything I've ever wanted to say about dogs, it's hard to say it right. And she's so good at it. And I'm always like, I wish I could just be like, you asking me this question, let me just click play on what Allie just said. But
yeah, it's kind of like her and Dallas both, you know?
Yeah,
like
Dallas is great at it too, man.
They're so good at articulating what they think and what they see and their knowledge into where, you know, most everybody can understand it.
Right. And what Allie was saying was that, you know, she doesn't feel bad for the dogs going on the race, of course. She feels bad for the dogs that she had to choose to leave behind.
Absolutely.
Right? That didn't make the team.
Because they worked so hard.
They spent all this year training. They're prepared for it. You've trained 20 dogs. You pick 14 or you pick 16. Yeah. And those 4 dogs probably could have gone. And unfortunately, you just got to leave some home. And,
as a runner myself, I just like the next race that I'm going to do, I'm like, wired up about it for like a month ahead of time. I'm like so excited. I'm like, I did all this training. I can't wait to go to this race, man. I can't sleep a few nights before the race comes up. And the dogs, you know, they want to go. They want to go strut their stuff, man.
They know.
They want to go and they like feel that excitement. Like, oh, I'm here. I'm on the big stage now. It's time to show all my dogs. This is why I work so hard, you know.
Yeah, dude, it's so fun to see that start line energy. You know, the dogs know when an event's happening. And, you know, we always talk about racing, but you're racing. Other people aren't racing. They're just like, this is new country, new trails, getting to the finish line, sharing the trail with their dogs, watching that development happen, and getting those dogs like, who was it that got confident on that one run you said?
Oh, Hudson, yeah.
Getting those Hudson moments.
Man, when that's you see cool. That's why people keep doing this.
Yeah, the Hudson moments of like, you did these dogs that are young and unsure.
It really goes to show you just can't give up on a dog.
That. Yeah, you really. You know? There is like Riley Dyke always says, he's a firm believer that there's not a bad sled dog, right? When you have these Alaskan Huskies and you're like, yeah, this dog's just, I don't think
just maybe doesn't fit your style.
It's like, no, Riley thinks it's not that. It's just that they haven't had that personalized, individualized training that dog might need.
Right.
That maybe the other dogs thrive with the standard, you know, program.
Yeah.
But maybe this dog needs a little more, you know.
Maybe he needs less miles. Maybe he needs more miles.
Right.
You know, maybe he needs a little more one-on-one time. Maybe you got to coddle that dog and be like, and he'll be like, I'm a good boy.
I know. Sometimes I do that.
And I kind of fail sometimes in that because I'm like, I like those hard-headed dogs. I like kind of like, but one thing I've had to do to like have a big kennel is I have to be able to sell dogs.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to sell performers that are going to go and, you know, make somebody see them. So I do that. In another team, I like still, if a dog's not succeeding in my program, we put it in, have these multiple teams. And, you know, I've had some really good handlers that have been great at training dogs. And I go out and train them too. And like we train them to thrive. And then they go to another team and they're like their best dogs sometimes,
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah. That's exactly what
I
it's all
love
about.
to see a dog succeed and overcome.
Yeah.
And it comes from not giving up. What a dog is as a yearling is not what it's going to be as a 3-year-old sometimes.
Absolutely.
You
And
know?
sometimes the dogs don't become like their like peak athlete and peak dog in general, just being a good dog.
4 or 5
well behaved.
sometimes.
Yeah. You know, and there's dogs you're like, yeah, through 3-4 years old, you're like, I don't know if this dog's ever gonna make my Iditarod team. And then they, you know, you get the right training or the right mental development or whatever, and they turn that corner. And I love those the Hudson kind of stories like that. And
Yeah,
like,
he's cool.
Like,
He's a half streeper dog.
okay,
You know, I've been messing around with these like
for
half
everybody.
streeper breedings.
We have a lot of mushers that listen, but a few aren't. Streeper's a sprint guy, right?
Yeah, Buddy
You know?
Streeper, he's like the world champion in sprint mushing, and these are race distances up to 30 miles, and they're usually 3-day races, and these guys are going 20 miles an hour, max speed, not max speed, but max maintainable speed.
And they're still Alaskan Huskies, but it's a different kind of like genetic.
There's like a 16th, they breed them down to maybe a 16th German Shorthair Pointer.
Okay.
But they are mostly Alaskan Husky, but they don't quite look like it. They look more like a pointer a lot of
They
times.
got them floppy ears, houndy look to them.
So I've kind of incorporated breeding some different stuff because I like to experiment, you know, and it's fun for me. And I actually kind of go back and forth sometimes. It's like this midlife crisis, like I want to buy a sports car, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to start sprint racing because I run the Open North American 2 times, the World Championship sprint race.
What's
That's in Fairbanks, the
okay.
Open North American Championships.
I never have really
It's
given
the most fast and furious sprint race, you know,
and
open
it's like
class
30 miles.
It's 21, 21, 27.
21, 27. And you're doing that in like an hour.
Yeah,
like
you're
21.
An hour and 6 minutes, you know, for the 21 or so. Yeah, it's wild.
Huh.
It's through the city too, you know, kind of like the for rendezvous and
nice.
You know,
I need to come and check. I've not.
There's so much more to mushing than the Iditarod.
Absolutely, and you know, do you ever think you got into? Sometimes you're like, you know, if you live the lifestyle, like you're not just. It's not just about it. You're out there, you know, off the grid in the most profound way. So having dogs is more than that, you know, more than racing or whatever. But
it's a lifestyle.
For like the sprinting, you know, the training isn't going to be, I mean, they're running 21 miles.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you can get them in shape a little quicker. Sure. I would think, right?
Yeah, or you can start a little later. You know, you don't have to do as much extreme, you know,
right? And things. And so you're like, it's kind
of good to save sprint racing for retirement.
For sled dog retirement?
Like you could be like 60 in sprint race probably, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not putting down sprint racing. It takes a work ethic too. But you could work a full-time job and train a pretty badass sprint team. You just can't do that. When it comes September, you have to be Iditarod.
Right.
Because you got to live on the trail, man. If you're going to prepare an Iditarod team, you ain't going to do it the old way of going 50 miles, you know, and coming back to your house. You got to go out there and live on the trail with those dogs.
Yeah.
You got to get them comfortable for what they're going to encounter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, you know, like you're saying, it's a total lifestyle for me. You know, like I'm out there. I moved out there to become a better musher. I thought, you know, town's a distraction. I always want to live out in the bush, you know. This is a great place because
and you're still like
it's my favorite training grounds beforehand. Right. I was like always wanted to live out. I was like training on the Denali Highway like 9 years ago being like, I want to live out here.
Yeah.
You know, Claude Bondi at Alpine Lodge. I was like, Claude, one day I'm going to live out here. And he's like, yeah, you should buy some land out here. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to. And I tell people that, and they're like, oh, land's never for sale out there. And I'm like, well, why do you just crush my dreams?
Yeah, come on.
You think I'm going to listen to you who wants to crush my dreams?
That's what
I'm going to live out there someday. You know, and then, bam, it happened.
Yeah.
And it was perfect property for me, undeveloped. Mm-hmm. You know, there wasn't a trail into there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I cut my way in with a trail.
Yeah.
In August, I sealed the deal in August, moved all my dogs from Nenana down there. And luckily I had awesome help with Julie, who handled for me for 4 years and made that big move and went out there, lived in a tent till December, 35 below. And then it was like the coldest winter I've experienced out there. It was 68 below.
Jesus, 68 ambient?
So you know what's crazy? This is a story I'd love to tell because this is something that a lot of people don't hear or see. And, it used to be more common back in the old days that they give the dogs a couple weeks off, around the holidays after hard training. That year I did 500 miles of training in a week. I only had 15 dogs for my Iditarod team, and I did the 300-mile race to Alpine Lodge back, and then another 38 miles to get home. So I did 200 miles right before that, and then I did the 328 miles, so 528 miles in a week. Mitch did the same thing. He was my main competition for the race. He had 2 teams in it. Yeah, you were out there, right?
I was out there, and that was.
And I flew. I mean, I was going. Slosher was in it. Yeah, I went probably close to 11 miles an hour most of the race. It was pretty cold. I had one older dog get frostbite, so I decided to just lay her off out of the team. So I went down to 14 dogs after that, and she had puppies. She was Yin from Jeff King, Sig's sister.
Nice.
Where a lot of my genetics come from, but they are like coded. And so I went down to that 14 dogs. I went home, and it turned butt cold, man. It didn't get above 40 below for 3 weeks, and it was down to 68 below and it didn't get above 60 below for 4 days.
Jeez.
And all I did was cut wood. Every single day I went and cut a large load of wood for my cabin and the other handler cabin.
Yeah.
And I had these huge cracks in my cabin. And the wind's really bad out there. There would be snow drifts blowing through my walls.
Oh my!
Because I moved out there in September.
Right.
So and of course I got into heavy dog training, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll get this cabin done, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I had one mattress. I didn't have any furniture. I had no windows. And my mattress was as close to the wood stove as you could get it, and I would keep that damn thing glowing red hot. And I'd sleep with a bunch of dogs in there.
Jesus.
I'd sleep with my whole team in there because it was only 14, 15 dogs.
Yeah.
But anyways, I gave those dogs 3 weeks off because I was like, I'm not going to run them, start them back up in this cold.
Minus 60, yeah.
I was like, no way am I going to do that.
There's not the reward to the risk isn't there.
That year I got 9th place in Iditarod, and I made a bazillion mistakes. Year? No, that was my third year.
Okay.
But I'm telling you what, most people might not, I had a winning team that year. Mm-hmm. I was nowhere near a winning driver.
Right.
And I depleted my energy going into that race so much. I eventually really learned you got to bring yourself into that race 100%, man.
Yeah.
Your dogs are dependent on you. It don't matter how good your team is.
Yeah.
And it was another one of those years where I came from way back in the 20s and surged up the coast,
That's so fun, dude.
That team's pretty much always done good on the coast.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had some crazy. Aren't you one of a very few mushers to recently at least to be doing the run from Caltag to White Mountain in 3 runs? Did you do that?
No, I've never done that.
You didn't do that. It was Univocleat.
I'm usually just flying down the coast. It's I've skipped Elam one time and did that in 11 hours from Koyuk, which is pretty darn fast.
Yeah.
That's
and it's hilly ass trail.
Yeah, it's 5 hours and 45 minutes per run, to Elam and then to there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that my team has been really amazing at, you may as well credit yourself because nobody else will credit you with these things. I have 4 of the fastest times ever up the coast.
4 up the coast?
On 4 of the runs up the coast.
Damn.
And one of them is from White Mountain to Nome.
Hell yeah.
And that's one to be proud of because that's the last 77 miles. It's not easy. No. You know how much I got it by?
20 minutes?
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was over Mitch.
Oh,
and
nice.
then Dallas is the next fastest, and it's almost 30 minutes behind those times. And then the next fastest is me again on another run. So, I've built this team that, just destroys the coast.
That's awesome, man.
So now I just had to figure out how to destroy the coast and be, up there in the top 3.
Right. Absolutely.
That's kind of the next step for that.
Well, highlight, a couple of dogs that are, I don't know. I'd say it doesn't even have to be your best dogs, but just, some dogs that, I don't know. I feel like we spent enough time talking about the people,
right.
And
dude, I could go off on this topic.
Yeah, I know.
You might have to 30 minutes from now, you might have to stop me a little bit. But let's see. One dog I'd really like to talk about is Bronco. Bronco is just a phenomenal white dog. He's I bred him out of some dogs from Mitch and Dallas. And you know Yak and Yeti?
Yak, yeah.
Yeti is the dog I bred. He's his dad.
Okay, nice.
But this dog is so exuberant. He vibrates with energy. Always has. He's like so hard to harness and so hard to put booties on, no matter what stage of it. He just now kind of calmed down. My handler this morning when we were running dogs was like, "Oh, you were nice and easy. You're getting easier." Right. And then I went and put some booties on his back feet, and I was like, "Oh, that was nice and easy. Isn't he getting easy?" You know. But Joanna, Jago, okay. now her name's different. Joanna Weber. She's married to my friend Joe.
Nice.
She ran him last year in Iditarod.
Oh.
She dropped him around Grayland for, being thin. Vets didn't tell her he was too thin, but she was just like, when you're running somebody else's dogs,
Yeah, don't.
Like Eddie had Elam in his team, and he could have, kept running him if it was his dog, but he was like, it's Jesse's dog, I'm going to drop him in Uniclete. And, man, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, those two dogs went on to be critical in my 440 win.
Oh.
So I'm kind of talking about two dogs at one time right now, but it just kind of come up because two people both ran them. And Bronco never stopped screaming and barking the whole 440. I'm telling you, I'm in the last 11.5-hour run. It's 45 below. The last time I stopped, which wasn't very far from Kotzebue, just like, and then I started running him in lead a bunch. Like since the summer, he's just phenomenal.
That's so cool.
He's such a fun dog, man. I mean, he's a 440 champion. He's going to bring a lot to the Iditarod team. That 14 I'm telling you about, I don't count him in that. There was another dog in there, Toby, bred out of Yeti as well, to another female.
I love
it.
Mitch. I love the name Toby for a dog. That's pretty fun.
Oh, it's a pretty good one. She's named after that was the legendary dog
girl
leader.
Toby. Okay.
Yeah, it was a girl, but she was named after a boy Toby, who was one of my first great leaders who was passed, who was Julie Annan's dog.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I gave her to her as pet life for the last 5 years.
Nice.
But so it was the legendary dog litter.
Okay.
Like we just named all the dogs that year after legendary leaders.
Nice. Legendary leaders from your kennel?
No, just all over,
Just famous sled dogs.
Blue, Tex, a lot of George Allen names, Cooling, like these, like all kinds of cool names.
Huh. Nice.
From different mushers. It's kind of a fun thing to do, but she only did a 100-mile race like the week before 440. It didn't do any of the crazy hardcore training. This dog went and won the 440 with me. That dog never made a misstep. I never saw that dog. I never thought much about that dog. She kind of just flew under the radar.
Some of the best dogs.
Never missed a step in the friggin' 440. A tough 440. I was like, she was kind of a poor eater before the 440 too. Like 440 will really fix that, man.
Yeah.
11.5-hour runs. You're like, I think I'll eat now. I'm kind of hungry. Yeah. But that dog is amazing. And then Eddie ran Elam. He was kind of my 17th dog, or whatever, your 15th dog, and he was maybe even my 16th dog, because he went and took Red Dog and Elam. And he used Elam in 4 long runs in lead. He got him, and he's up there at Don's cabin with Pete, Richie, and Ryan, and they're all like, "Who's that big leader you got?" And he's like, "Oh, that's Elam. Where did he come from?" "From Jesse." "Oh, how long you been working for him?" "I got him the day of the race."
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, at Willow.
That's insane.
Because, I lend out a lot of dogs.
Yeah.
And I've become superstitious. I'm like, you should just let me give you the dog the day of the race. And they're like, no, I need to make a bond with it. And I'm like, no, you're better off if you just get it right for me.
Oh my God! You introduced to Eddie the day of the race.
Yeah, that's and insane. Eddie just used 4 runs in lead, big runs.
Big run. The Don's Cabin's the one, but in Iditarod that stretch.
Yeah, on the way to Iditarod.
Yeah.
And he ended up dropping him in Uniclete. He had a little slightly sore wrist that he totally could work through, but appreciated that so much. I went and picked him up from Tony Browning. He had only ran 10 miles since the Iditarod. I went and took him on that 110-mile race at 11 miles an hour.
Nice.
And he went and led me for 2 runs on the 440.
Damn.
So, my team is just getting so much better.
That's so. Talk about back to that personalized training. You've tried to plug these couple of dogs into your program. Maybe they sat out because of a soreness here or whatever there, and then let's try him with Eddie. Yeah. And
dude, Eddie's a great dog guy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. You and Eddie and a lot of these. There's a few other people, but you don't go, like, you haven't done dogs but for 9 years, right? You know?
Yeah.
And but like your just willingness to learn and fully commit to.
Plus a lot of like really good mushers' willingness to teach us. You know?
The mentoring of your, what was his name, Cotter? Right?
Bill Cotter,
Bill Cotter.
Gerald Riley, Rocky Riley, Lester Earhart.
Riley's
just
like the
tons of incredible native drivers. You know, that like they didn't like just race dogs. They grew up running dogs to get wood. You know, water is a lifestyle. You know, I've been lucky to be immersed in that. I've been doing dogs. I have no excuse to like not do my best because I've actually been involved with dogs for 20 years.
20 years.
I started racing seriously maybe 12 years ago, but I was like always sprint racing. You know, and mid-distance racing, you know.
Yeah, you did do a lot of mid-distance races before Iditarod, right?
Yeah, and I kind of never thought I was going to get the chance to like do the Iditarod thing. It takes so much resources to get into. I had a fish wheel, and, you know, I was, like, catching my own fish and, like, living the subsistence lifestyle and, you know, doing the best I could to race a few races a year.
Right.
But then, you know, kind of the show thing happened with me getting on the TV show.
The National Geographic.
Yeah. The Life Below Zero. All of a sudden, I got a job that's coming to me.
That's pretty sweet.
You know, and it's like, yeah, I still got work, you know, like, and, you know, most of those first years in Iditarod, like the first 4 years, I worked 60 days a winter where I could not focus on training dogs.
Damn.
But that's what, you know, you got to have the resources to be able to do these races. So once I started, you know, getting that extra income and not having to like spend all summer working and then like the fall catching a bunch of fish and like trading fish for like beef and like, you know, not having all the great supplements and like all the, you know, good gear, I was able to like up my gear and like, you know, I continued to succeed with being on the show and like it pays me really well.
Nice.
And now they're like really on board with me trying to win the Iditarod. And I've kind of like an OG on the show, been on there for like 6-7 years now. Damn. So like, I'm like, I only do 6 episodes a winter now.
Okay.
And 6 in the summer. Okay, so nice. Where I used to do 20.
In the winter?
All year, you know, 12 in the winter, like 8 in the summer. Yeah. So now I like do my 2, like we're planning up my 2 episodes for like end of October. I'll be truck training hopefully on the Denali Highway then. So like I can work during the day and then go train at night. And I can make that, I can plan to train hard up to that and then like give them a little bit of an easy week and a half while I work for recovery and just keep them moving. Kind of manage my handlers, taking on a little bit more roles of like, you know, doing the driving and coach them. But then it's like, bam, all the way until after 440, then they'll come back and I'll do my last 4 because it's winter forever at my place.
Right.
So then I'll do my last 4 winter episodes. And I did that last year for the first time, and it was a game changer, dude.
Wow.
Because after November on, it's just dogs.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about working.
Right. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So they're not coming.
And I'm keeping the job happy, you know? Like, that's, dude, that's my number one priority is when they're there, like, my goals of being an Iditarod champion go on the back burner because that's my job, you know?
Right.
You want to keep a job, you do a damn good job. I'm always trying to go above and beyond with that, you know?
Nice. Yeah, is it, I mean, obviously that's show, you know, I can't tell you. I mean, I worked in tourism in Alaska for 6 years. At least maybe 7 years, and every single time they're like, yeah, we watched this show Life Below Zero, have you heard of it? And I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. And so like obviously I'm like, yeah, I know the guy, the mushing guy, you know, Jessie Holmes. And like, oh yeah, Jessie. So you're like in this Life Below Zero world, like a celebrity, but then like you're living out in the middle of freaking nowhere, so like you don't actually experience your celebrity-ness until you get to that, maybe that Iditarod start. But
except for when I'm going down the road and the Jeep tours go by and I'm training dogs or I'm running or I'm biking and they're all like, ah.
Nice.
I'm aware of it, but like, it's not, you know, I like the fact that like I can be on there and give light to what we do with these dogs and how positive it is for these dogs and how much we love these dogs and the platform it gives me for the sport.
Yeah, man.
And, like, the income, and I love doing it. I love working with the people, and I love being creative, you know? Like, the show's gotten 3 or 4 Emmys for cinematography. They're very creative. You know, they're always trying to get these great shots. That takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You know, we do like 4 days, 6 days worth of work to make a 12-minute segment of me. But like, I enjoy being creative with the crew and like the, you know, creative aspects of it. And like, oh, I got this idea for this shot. And they're like, oh yeah, well, cool. You're really learning, you know, and like you learn how it goes. I like that part, but like, I hate the idea of being on the show. I hate the actual idea of people watching me because like, I'm like really live this lifestyle and like, I'm a pretty private guy. Right. I like, you know, I don't live this lifestyle for some kind of fame or anything.
Right.
So it's kind of overwhelming when you think about everybody knowing your business.
It's kind of nice to like.
And then you ever have anything bad happen? Like, get a speeding ticket? No, worse than that. Like, I've had a couple, like, bad things happen, you know, like where I fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
And boy, does the world come down on your ass whenever you're in the spotlight.
Yeah.
You know? It turns around real quick. People think, oh, this is so great for this guy. A lot of people have kind of said to me, oh, well, you don't got to worry. You got a sponsor. I'm like, who the fuck is that? They're like, National Geographic, Light Below Zero. I'm like, that's called a fucking job, man.
Yeah, right.
I work my ass off for that money.
Yeah. It's not just like you're like, oh, you guys just follow me with the camera and I'll just keep doing my thing. You're like, you got to create an episode, you know, and it is authentic, but you got to have,
and you have to like
something
exciting. One thing I think you really got to open up, you know, and that's what I've done over the last couple of years is like, you know, I've kind of been through a lot of hardships and like really been torn down and like it humbles you and it's just like grounds you in humility and like if you can open up and share that with the audience, that's what they really want to see. They want to know who you are, you know, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's like, so, you know, now I've set the standard for that. So every time they come back, it's like more opening up, you know, it's like you're not always just a success, you know, you got to talk about your failures and your shortcomings in life. And, you know, it's a long, hard road to get to where I'm at now, living this amazing dream that I'm living.
Yeah, you are living the dream out
I mean,
there,
like,
man.
Every day out there, I'm like, what do I got to do to, like, try to be an Iditarod champion?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I wake up at, like, 3 in the morning. That's what I dream about. That's what I go to sleep thinking about, and that's what I wake up and do. So it's
do you, like,
pretty
ever
awesome.
just, like, this is pretty sick that we get to sit down and you're like take a break for an hour and just hang out, you know. You bet you don't get to do that as much.
That's not so true, you know. It's like
you take some breaks. You don't get it. You're running the 4 hours of sleep at night all 365 days.
No, I know it's important to like, you know, invest back in yourself, you know.
Yeah.
Like also
some
like
self-care.
So like, you know, get up early, I train dogs, and then it's like, all right, you know, like I got to train myself. You know, I'm an athlete. I need to, you know, be able to be in good shape. To be the best I can be. And so, like, I go for a run, and then I go and I lift weights, and then I do pull-ups and sit-ups, and, like, crush working out for a couple hours. And then sometimes maybe I take a nap, you know?
Yeah, dude, you got to take a nap. Come on.
Take a nap, and then I can wake up and I can train more.
Right.
You know, like, a little 2-hour nap, and then I can work out 2 more hours, and then I can run another team.
Right.
So, you know, one thing that was important this summer for me is to invest back in myself. I was really depleted after such a hard season, you know, and a lot of hardships mentally to overcome, you know, with the accident that happened. And I just was like, man, you know what? For 2 months, I'm only going to do things that I really want to do. And that was grow food, my garden, really expand that operation, and train like crazy to get strong again because like I was so weak and frail after this year.
That was like you had that. When did that accident happen?
In end of September, end of September. I got crushed underneath the house.
Fuck, dude.
Broke this wrist in 3 places. My elbow went through my ribs, broke 2 ribs, and fractured this wrist. So I basically had 2 useless arms. Fuck. And I got out of the hospital and I went right to training, man. I never let a damn thing stop me. Dude, just like mental fortitude. You know, I was like, dude, I mean, I was like a second away from dying. I thought I died, you know, like, and I like had this awesome opportunity to like do what I love the most and realize how frail life is.
Yeah.
Like life's fleeting, man. Live it to the fullest every single day is what I came away from that with. And man, I never lived life to the fullest like I did this winter. People are like, you poor guy. And I'm like, there's nothing poor about me. I'm alive and living. I was pretty skinny.
Yeah.
Like, I lost all this muscle. Mm-hmm. And I was like 145 pounds at the Iditarod start, which I'm normally 167.
Right.
You know? Damn. So that was a challenge.
Yeah. That's insane.
But, you know, it also was like, man, I had the best race of my life there that year with all that adversity. And I'm like, man, just think how that's going to help me next year. You know, like, it's like you know how deep you can dig.
Yeah.
You know how much you can go through. You know how good you got it when you got it good, too, after you had it that rough.
Yeah. Damn, man. Well, we're glad you're still freaking here, man.
I'm glad it happened, to be honest. I don't think I could have said that, you know, until now, because it just gave me a different perspective.
Yeah.
A really good perspective of, like, you know, how precious life is and how you got to live it to the fullest and be thankful for it every day.
Yeah. It's easy. People say that all the time, and it's really hard to get that perspective. And even with you saying that, it's still like I can't have that same perspective as profoundly as you have, having experienced a near-death, you know, situation like that, and you know, getting that, and that's one of the greatest things about your lifestyle. And I've experienced a lesser but similar version of your lifestyle, having worked with dogs and done this racing life, and you know, you're just constantly having hardships, and you know, and it just makes you tougher, and everything, all the things that used to be what you were, oh man, this really bothers me, and so this drama with this person and whatever. It's like all small shit. Just like, it doesn't really matter. Like, yes, I was just out at minus 68 degrees, chopping wood, and you know, that was way harder than this little quarrel I have with my aunt or whatever. You
know, one of the best things I ever heard. You just can't sweat the small things in life.
Yeah,
you know, and really, so many things that we get all upset about and let really affect us are so small in the larger scale of things. And yeah, man, you know, Iditarod's really good for teaching you that.
Absolutely.
You know, something can seem like it's the end of the world. You're so tired. It's just nothing, man, if you just stay positive.
Amen, man. Well, I know you got to go to town and run some errands, and we've been chatting for well over an hour, you know.
Oh, wow. So that went by quick.
Yeah, I want to respect your time, and and I really appreciate you hanging out, man.
I'm happy to do the podcast, dude. First one I've done.
Yeah. Oh, right on. Yeah, this is the first time I've really done it in person.
I enjoy listening to you guys' podcast. I think it's cool, you know. It's another platform for the sport, and, you know, I really, appreciate how you have a wide variety of different people on it. You know, it's not just, top-tier mushers. It's, throughout the sport, you know?
Yeah, we're trying to get...
You got to get some sprint mushers on here.
That would be fun, man. I definitely feel like I've been sticking with more, Iditarod participants, but, you know, we're going to need to kind of branch out a little bit, but
or some of the old timers.
I want to get, you know, sit down with Jeff at some point, you know, or talk to those stories from the 80s and 90s.
Oh, dude, I mean, those are the best.
Yeah. I haven't even scraped the surface because I've only been around this sport since 2015. And, you know, even just talking about, back in 2010, I'm like, I don't know these names. I don't know these stories as well. Yeah. You know, you just hear about the Lance Mankey days, but, you know, I don't know the nitty-gritty stories.
What a legend that guy was.
Yeah. He talked about some near-death experiences. He had plenty of them.
Yeah.
And he's the definition of that grit that,
totally,
you know, everybody tries to embody in this race and all this lifestyle. But cheers, man.
Cheers to you, bro.
Yeah.